Here we go.
And you're really, all that's going on. And you get love bombed because you're wearing a dress. You're going to wear a dress. Because that's your only pleasure in life. It's your only happiness. It's the only time you're, and that's just like I said earlier, that when I was having a really tough time, if I put on anything even slightly feminine, it would make me feel better. And it wasn't because of the dress. It wasn't because of the femme. It wasn't because of all that. It was because I was trying to escape my life that I was in. It had nothing to do with the femme stuff. Yeah. And these are all the mistakes that are being made that nobody wants to talk about. Because automatically, as soon as you put any of this up online, you're going to have so much hate. And I'm going to have way more hate. I'm going to have more death threats. After I was doing the Robbie Starbuck thing, it wasn't, uncommon for me to get death threats. And I do believe that probably me doing this right now, it'll probably happen. And I'm going to try to protect myself. But I don't have a doubt that me talking about this much stuff and talking about it, I'm taking away a lot of money. I'm taking away millions of dollars from Vanderbilt right now. They have gender teams. And this is why I said it's why they're doing it. It's all money. Because as soon as you make a transgender kid, you have a client for life. You have a customer for life. You have a patient for life. There's complications. There's constant pharmaceuticals all the time. There's constant updates, and there's a lot of surgeries. So they created these gender teams with one doctor and his anesthesiologist and all the nurses, everything else that does it, to do the gender surgeries. They make $450,000.
Jesus Christ.
For one surgery. And it's all paid for by insurance. So it's a huge scam between insurance and the administration in the hospital. It's not the doctors. The doctors are caught between a rock and a hard place. If you go to any one of them doctors at Vanderbilt, there'll be some of them that are really fired up about it because they're convinced that they're helping these kids. And that's that total narcissistic compassion I'm talking about. They're only helping themselves, and they're getting a lot of money doing it. So $450,000 for one surgery, and the surgery takes about 4 hours. And they're doing these things, pumping them out.
Did you do any surgeries?
And it all goes to the administration. Breast only. And some facial stuff. And I regret every one of them. And I'm fighting back to go back to at least a little bit of who I was before, physically and mentally, but mostly spiritually. Because it was a spiritual hole that I went into about, I don't know if you know very much about the Hermetics, about Hermes, about how they see humanity and the Gnostics and all that. Mm-hmm. So human beings and the way they see us is we are the temple, we are the highest or the apex. And everything we do is man's pursuit of man's perfection. Nothing to do with God or spirit or a creator or the code of DNA that was actually in us. They think they can do better. They're rewriting the DNA. They're rewriting humanity to try to be a better human. And this is transhumanism. And that's the full extent of where it's going into, is transhumanism. And that's why the Neuralink and everything they're doing is part of the transhumanist agenda. It's all part of it. I mean, I could go into this stuff for a long time, but you can track it all back into Hermes and the Gnostics and going into a lot of the way we see ourselves, that we are not special, we're just a rock floating through space, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and going about 1,000,000 miles an hour towards the center of the universe. There's a bunch of other stuff going on, the vortex calculations and everything else, and how we're spinning. It's an intense calculations, which pretty much proves why we're not doing any of that, But if we're that third rock spinning through the universe, that means nothing, we're just lucky, evolution and all that, then none of this matters. That's the end goal of what they want. But if this is a temple and this is special, and this is created for a purpose, and the earth was also the same thing, then we have to do everything we can to care for this. And what they're doing right now is nothing but damage.
So there was no... Everything was encouragement to go through with this.
Yeah.
There was no, maybe we need to think about this. Maybe
the only
we need to
person
think
that
about
said
the
something
trauma.
was Jim Campbell, a SEAL team guy, that he wanted it. Like, there's a few SEALs that challenged me on it, and they really, but it was more like a fight challenge. It wasn't really a mental challenge or intellectual challenge or a spiritual challenge or any challenge that made any sense. Like, if it was a psychological challenge that they actually started digging into it, like actually happened to me later in life, and thank you, you know, to anybody that did that. And I know a couple of people, but it was mostly my fiance. It was a hardcore intellectual challenge to me, you know, for me to really start digging in. And COVID helped, you know. It was the fact that something happened on this earth, that they were putting out data, and there was evidence that the data wasn't really right, you know. And there's a bunch of other stuff, and it was like, this isn't really adding up, you know. And so that started making people think and waking up, you know, and looking at it. And that's when I talked to you earlier about the apocalypse, you know. The word apocalypse in Greek and Latin and all the other ones, derivatives of it,
An awakening.
the word apocalypse and what they said in the Bible and what it really meant was the awakening. It was about the lifting the veil is actually a more direct interpretation. But the veil is lifted, and the veil is lifted right now because of what happened in 2019-20. People are starting to realize what's going on. We see the Rockefellers, who they are. We see Rockefeller, Rothschild. We see Gates. We see all of them. I know what they're doing. And when I see anything that had to do with 33 or One Eye or any of the above, Joaquin, Boaz, all the temple stuff, I know all this stuff because I studied it. You know, I know everything they're doing. And the thing is, it's a very evil agenda. And it's exactly what I said. It's about transhumanism. It's about the human being the top of that pyramid, that there is nothing above us. It's about making us the perfect thing. That's when you have to take Joaquin and Boaz and you have to go to the third, and that's a combination of the two, and that's transgender too. Baphomet. You know who Baphomet is?
No, I don't.
It's the Lucifer. It's a worship being. You know, all of them. You know, there's an agenda that is so deep and so entwined within all of our societies. There's not very many places on Earth that doesn't have this really deep. You know, so I'm talking about like an international world deep state.
Yeah.
Whenever Trump was talking about the deep state in America, you know, it's pretty bad, and they're all connected. And that's why when you see a picture of President Obama sitting on Bush Sr.'s lap as a kid, that's when you start really seeing that they're all connected. When you see Bush Jr. debating as a presidential debating against one of his brothers, you know, from the same fraternity, you know. So it's just ridiculous how entwined and everything really is. So pretty much exactly after Bush Sr., every one of them has been connected, except Trump. He was the only one that was kind of off, you know, out of that he could actually say things that weren't controlled, you know. And that's a problem right now, is that every president is picked and placed to do exactly what they're told. They have no freedom. They have to answer exactly to the one person.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what you know about the Catholic Church, but there's also a really twisted thing going on inside the Catholic Church. The Library of Alexandria is in the bottom of the Catholic Church. It's not lost. It wasn't burned. You know, that was just cover story. If you go down 4 levels under the Vatican, that's where it's at. But you have to go pretty deep in there. It's all locked up. They won't let anybody in there.
How far were you prepared to go with this?
Well, that's the problem, is I've gone so far right now that all of them now are going to be looking at me, and I don't care though, because the thing is the veil's lifted and I wear the armor of God.
I mean, with the transition, how far were you prepared to go?
I mean, as far as you ask me questions, you ask me anything.
Were you going to dismember?
What's that?
Were you going to dismember?
No.
No?
No. So I didn't have any full surgeries, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
So there's
Were they trying to convince you to do that?
No, because at that time they already knew that I was such a loose cannon that nobody was really talking to me at that point. So I would have to do everything and make it all happen and really start pushing in a direction, you know. So there's and it's also a surgery that's just, it's not experimental anymore because they're pretty good at it, but there's a lot of complications, with a lot of folks.
I mean, I would think.
So, I mean, I know some of them where the anal cavity actually connected to that new cavity they put, and so it's pretty much, it's really bad. And I know another one that had it all done, and the depth is about a half inch, and it hurts really bad when she pees. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and they're on constant pharmaceuticals, all of them, and constant maintenance. So there's a lot of money in that. So they get $450,000 just for that one surgery. The breast augmentation would be about $20,000 to $50,000, depending on the insurance and the complications and everything else. Plus, there's a lot. Facial surgery, you're talking about up to $100,000 to do anything with your face. When you start talking about voice coaching and then all the other therapies and everything else, you're talking about, a few $1,000,000 per person going directly into the pharmaceutical and the medical administration, not always doctors. That's why I said the doctors are in between that rock and a hard place. The doctors are in between insurance and the administration at the hospitals. That's why Vanderbilt, I feel sorry for all those doctors, because most of them probably don't want to do this. They know it's wrong.
They shouldn't do it.
They know it's wrong.
But
if they voice out their opinion, then they're immediately fired.
Well, sometimes you just have to stand up.
They
for what's
should.
right.
If we had some doctors that started having that integrity and started having that, and their Hippocratic oath, if they knew what that oath really meant, and they knew that out of half of the people you're doing this to, I'm telling you, at least half or more is a lot of other stuff, Or it's just someone who's gay that it's easier for them in society. And that's why I think a lot of the gay community and the lesbian community are saying that transgender people is actually homophobia.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of them. But they don't voice it, because as soon as they say that, like they'll say it to me because I'm pretty loud and they know where I stand. A lot of them tell me that stuff. And a lot of females, real females will tell me, for the fact that I just said real females, I'm going to get a ton of hate. But I don't know.
What was I just saying before this? Now, I have seen this episode, but it's been a minute. I seen it like around the time when it first came out, so I don't remember every little thing that he said. But what did I just say? That you have a mass group of people that the moment that you say something that they don't like, all that love bombing they were giving you, like, oh my God, you are so brave for doing this, and you stood up for what you believed in, and blah, blah, blah. And the moment you turn your back on that, what do? They come at you with pitchforks ready to just tear you down. And that's exactly what he's talking about. Getting death threats. How can an organization be about fucking love when you're going to be giving somebody death threats? About your own fucking body. About your own body. Ah, my God.
No, because it's hard because they keep changing the
Biological
definitions.
female.
Biological
Is
female.
that
I wish we could use the word
appropriate?
female for females and use woman for the group. Because woman is more society driven maybe, but then female is more biological. So if they would have at least given us the benefit of doubt that we're smart enough to know that if I say the word female, I'm just talking about biology, I'm talking about the person. Because you can't say biological transgender person is a female, because they had to have all the surgeries, they had all the stuff done. And same thing, if you have an obese child, you don't take their large or small intestines and cut it in half. So, I know someone, someone who was so caught up in that this is a sexual attraction and problem that they are also not approaching. It's a Kardashian influence for all this. They're making all these women get all these extra surgeries because they want to be more sexually attractive to their partner. And so it's a sexual arousal thing for their partner, because their partner looks at all the Kardashian stuff and see what they're doing. So it's big butts, big lips, and all the other stuff that they're doing, and then the makeup and all the other stuff, and all these surgeries and boobs and all this stuff. Well, that's going down to these kids. So you have teenagers getting breast augmentation because they're looking up to that. And so this is the same as gender dysphoria. It's a gender dysphoria, woman to woman. It's in their own selves, and it's not transgender dysphoria. It's a same gender dysphoria. And the Kardashians are pushing that because it's a lot of money. It's the same thing. So all these women are getting all these surgeries and getting breasts and lips and butts and all these other things. Even a dude's getting calf implants and all this stuff, and Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff. That's gender dysphoria. But at least it's in the same gender, so it's not as bad. Actually, it's celebrated. If you have giant calves, you're in a weight room, and they say, "Oh, leg day, man, you do legs." They're praised for that. They're love bombed for it. but nobody knows that they're actually, fake calves,
Yeah.
So the love bombing goes within their own genders for this whole same agenda that they're doing cross genders. It's all the same agenda, and it's all money driven. It's all ego driven. It's all sexual arousal driven. Do you see that?
Yeah.
That I know someone whose husband was seeing her as overweight, and so she went and got one of those surgeries, and she was like, not overweight. She was like 170 or probably 160 max in her entire life. She's like 5'6" maybe, blonde haired and really pretty. She's had like 3 boob jobs, and then she had her entire intestine cut out because her husband wasn't sexually aroused enough to her. And so she had it all done. That's gender dysphoria. And it's also sexual arousal misplacement and all the other stuff. They should be in therapy and never would have had to have surgeries. Because we could have talked to them and said this and this and really worked with them. And then no surgery, don't worry about that. You don't need to do that. Because what she did right now is she's shortened her life by a lot and made everything complications because your intestines and our bodies are amazing machines. But she has a waist like this big right now because she got rid of all of her guts. Her intestines are totally gone, so everything went in. She has a waist like this big now. But it turns her husband on. That's gender dysphoria.
It's fucked up.
Nobody talks about that. The Kardashians did that, and their entire ilk. The makeup industry, all of them, they push it. And it all goes down on the teenage kids, these teenage girls. That's why they're all transgender to trans men, trans boys. They're double mastectomy in their boy. Because they can't keep up with the Kardashians. And so they're better off over there living as that boy rather than trying to keep up with all that stuff. And they do it to themselves within the girl cliques too. Because as soon as you have that group that has the money, and it happens to the poor kids more. It won't happen to the rich girls because they have all the clothes that they want. If you're a kid in a small town in the country and you don't have the money and you're really struggling, you have hand-me-down stuff, you're going to become a boy now. This is what's happening. And it's the transhumanism agenda. It's all attached. The less they make us respect and value ourselves, our biology, and the gift that we're given, and the beauty of the machine that we're given. I told you that my food intake is probably about 1/10 of what yours is. And that's also one of the things I read in these really old books, that the food intake is it's making your system work really hard for a bunch of stuff that you're going to poop out later, that you don't even use any of those vitamins or minerals or any of it. You pee and poop them all out. You don't even use them. It's too much. And so what it does is it makes all your systems work so much harder, and it wear and tear and all that. You're making your life shorter because you're eating too much. Because you're taking too many vitamins. You're drinking too many of them Red Bulls and all them special drinks that everybody's making nowadays. They're garbage. And drinking the cold water and the ice is causing more of the issues, and you should be drinking warm water. And then everything that I'm talking about, I can tell you all the nutritional stuff that I've been learning over time. It's just everything that's happening right now to us as humans is for the same reason. It's an agenda. It's to make us not like ourselves, for us not to respect ourselves, for us not to see the gift, to see the beauty of it all. The machine, the beautiful machine, to make us destroy that machine into something else. And if something that's man-made, that's the full thing that they want, is the top of that pyramid. It's not God, it's man, for them. It's horrible, it's evil, it's an evil agenda. I'm not saying transgender people are evil, because they've bashed me on that all over the place. The transgender ideology and the transhumanistic agenda is evil. And it's the transgender agenda, it's transgender ideology. It's not the people. There's a lot of people getting trapped into it. A lot of people are pushing way into that because that's what they're being told is the right thing. Just like with me.
At what point did you come to the realization that this wasn't you?
I don't know, starting about 4 years ago, you would notice there started being some social media posts and some other stuff. And you'll see in pictures when I'm like long-haired, trying to be a cute guy, and that's all. Oh, but then there's breasts and some of the clothing. Oh, it's a girl. So, but it was a while ago I started getting the inclination, but it was way more when I started having some really deep conversations with Courtney. You know, that's when it really coalesced. That's when it all came together. And I was like, light bulb went off. This is all wrong.
How
You know?
how long have you?
And I've been
imported-
wearing flannel shirts in the summertime. You know, I've been wearing these flannels for every interview for a long time.
Yeah.
And even in some of those other interviews, like on Joe, when I was on with him, I was trying to cover it off and trying to be as less as I could. You know, I had all the long hair. It was all like in these braids, real tight, and my flannel shirt, and then just, it's like it wasn't me, but it is still part of me. You know, if you have gender dysphoria, or autogynephilia, or the transgender, to go the full spectrum, the full, you know, thing, is it never leaves you. And if you want to call me transgender for life, then it's like an alcoholic being called an alcoholic for life. You know, I don't really believe it, but there's always that, the thoughts are there. It's like, I can't make the thoughts fully all go away. It's almost totally obliterated. It's totally gone. But there's always that thing, because I still like look at pictures and I go, oh, every time I look in a mirror, I see my face, and she's caught me a couple times when I look in a mirror and she says, you're okay, you're beautiful, just like you are. I go, yeah, but I damaged myself so much. I don't look like I should look. When I look in there, I don't see myself. I see something that I destroyed. And she'll just give me a hug and hug me until I stop, you know. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I mean, I still don't see it. I still see so much damage, you know. And it's not damage that, like, getting blown up, or it's not. And I shouldn't have said that, because then I think about Jay. When I looked over at Jay's sign over there on the wall, and I go, well, it's not damage. But when I look at it, it's not me, and so I see that as damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not something anyone else will ever see as damage. You're gonna look at me and go, "Wow, you're handsome, and you're this, you're that, and you're a good-looking person." Because I don't have, like, you know, I'm not Quasimodo, you know. But when I look at it, I see Quasimodo in the mirror. You know, that I shouldn't have done that. Is this and this and this, you know. And this is the thing that Chloe Cole, a 15-year-old, who is now 19 or 20, who's seeing it. And how many more kids do we have to do that to?
Yeah.
They're going to be in the same place that I am. And now here you look at me as a fairly intelligent person. I think about a lot of stuff, and I really try hard to do the right thing. And I fell in this. What's happening to teenagers? You know?
Chris, you're an extremely intelligent person. I mean, we just went through your career. It's phenomenal. I mean, I'm serious, you know? So if this can happen,
it's persistence.
to you.
If it happens to me, then those teenagers don't have a chance.
Yeah.
You know, and they're pushing the age even earlier. So do you know that there's actually laws, and people are really pushing for the age of consent to change?
Yeah, I don't.
So the age of consent, they're trying to push it back to like 10 or 11 years old. Do you know what happens when the age of consent changes? Then those parents have no say. That kid can go in there and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You know what else happens when the age of consent changes?
What?
Epstein's list becomes moot. So Epstein, doesn't matter. What they were doing is fine. It's okay. That's where they're going.
Yeah.
That's what they want. Because all the people on Epstein's list are pretty powerful people. A lot of them.
Yeah.
You've seen the flight logs. There's flight logs. You look at those flight logs that went to Epstein's Island. And if they were there for more than an hour after they stepped off the plane and saw what was going on, they would get back on the plane. None of them did. They all stayed there for a long time. What were they doing? So that flight log is basically the list.
We know what they were doing.
So it
Everybody knows
me.
what they were doing.
Everybody knows. It disgusts me that we still allow it. It disgusts me even more. They're trying to push the age of consent lower. Do you want to make a 10-year-old an adult? That's what you're doing. So that 10-year-old should also be able to sign up for the military. That 10-year-old can get tattoos. That 10-year-old can drink. So you need to change the drinking age. You need to change all of them. If the age of consent is changed, you better change the drinking age. You know? But they don't think about this stuff. They don't understand, or they do understand. A lot of them do. But the general public, that's a problem. The general public needs to wake up. And if the general public stands up, what are they going to do?
Do you think the general public is not awake, or do you think it's stupidity?
They're not aware. No, they're ignorant. And ignorance is no big deal. You know, I've been ignorant about a lot of stuff. Ignorance is something you can fix. Ignorance just means I don't know, you know? the general public is ignorant to all this stuff. The general public doesn't know. If they do know, they think it's fake or something, or they think, oh, somebody's making that up. I said, well, if somebody can make this up, then why can't somebody make up the other too? So why don't you at least look at all of it? They won't even look at it. So here's an example. In Brazil right now, perfect example. In Brazil right now, 92% of the people are saying they don't want, is it the mask mandates? Oh, it's a vaccine. So down in Brazil right now, it's 92% of the Brazilians, the Brazilian people, 92% say no vaccines. You cannot mandate these. You can't do anything. No. And the government said, nope, we don't care. If you don't take the vaccine, you go to jail. If you speak out about the vaccine and you say anything bad or negative about that vaccine, you go to jail. So 92% of the people say that. So what happens in the jails when they start filling the jails up? Do you know who they let out? In California, they just let out all the pedos.
Yeah.
They released them to the wild. Why aren't they still in jail? They should be, because they're filling the prisons up with people that just have a problem with the government. Say, I'm the best person the government would ever have on their side. I'm all about leadership. But if leadership is failing, I'm going to call it out. That's what we're supposed to do. You know, it's in the Constitution. We're supposed to be calling them out.
Yeah.
Is it in the Constitution? It might not be, but I mean, basically, it's written in there. That's why we have Second Amendment. That's why they wrote it. To make sure that tyranny doesn't happen. And right now, we have a tyranny of the masses. We have a tyranny of a small group of elites. And that's what we should start fighting. Tyranny of the masses is more dangerous than the tyranny of the elite. Tyranny of the masses is dangerous.
When did Courtney come in the picture?
Courtney came into the picture 2 years, a little over 2 years, maybe. It's been a little while. Yeah, it's been a little while. But started out just conversations, you know, meeting on social media, and just like a smart person make some comments, and I go, wow, that's cool. Or somebody makes a comment and says, I recognize that, and if you want to talk about that, I went through a lot of the same stuff, and I'll talk to you about it. So we started talking about stuff. And then after talking about stuff, then we finally met. And after meeting, it was like, wow, you know? It wasn't love at first sight. It was love before that, probably. But no, it wasn't. I'm just making that up.
Were you Chris or Kristen when you met?
Kristen.
You were Kristen when you met?
Yeah.
How
well,
long were
legally,
you
right
Kristen?
now, my name got legally changed. Because a bunch of lawyers volunteered to me. They said, hey, we'll do it for you. I wish they didn't. If nobody volunteered to change my name, I never would have changed it. But they said, hey, this is something that we want to do for you, and we're lawyers, and we're the best lawyers in America, and we'll do this for you. And so they did it all, and I wish they did, and it was the worst thing to do. So my name legally is Kristen. That's why it's Kristen on
what I meant
and
was
social media.
Were you identifying as a woman?
No, it's kind of in between, probably. I was more like in that middle spot.
Leaning more towards...
Oh, yeah, I was curious. Back. I mean, I'd have to ask her that, you know, what she really thought. But I think that it was a little bit of both. Because I was still kind of stuck in the Kristen role, because it's so hard to get out of that. Because people counting on me, and I have so much other stuff going, and it's already, like when you jump into the water head first off that diving board, it's really hard to get back up on a diving board.
Yeah.
And so for me to get out of all that took a long time. So I was partly out, not even close to being.
Do you want her to come on?
What's that?
Do you want Courtney to come on?
I mean, I think overall it'd be very beneficial. I think it would be good because the amount of what I've been going through, I can never get through it on my own. Not at all. Without her, I wouldn't be here right now. Without her, I don't know where I would be. It wouldn't be anywhere. I'd still be just hiding. Because if you notice, like, as far as like the news and the media and all that, like, when was the last time you ever saw me in the media until all of this? Like, very rarely. I don't like the media.
Yeah.
And I even said, like, Robbie Starbuck, you know, great dude. And that interview, and I told him, I said, I don't want to do any more interviews. And I said, I'll do this one interview and I'm done. But then when I started seeing what was going on with the interview, I was like, well, I can't be done because people are still, like, really misinterpreting and really confused, or they don't get it, you know? Or they're thinking that I'm saying something. It's like, no. Like the bumper stickers, you know, that you can take a little snippet out of CNN, out of Fox, and it's going to be whatever they want it to be.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. People took a lot of stuff that I said on Robbie Starbuck, and they're making me into this Christian wacko, you know. And it's also even the stuff I said on Joe Rogan. It was very, I was strategic about the stuff I did on Joe Rogan and about a lot of stuff I actually put online, is that I am trying to make my one post, my social media account has a lot of stuff on there that all I'm doing is asking a bunch of questions. I'm looking at stuff, and it's about flat Earth and a fake moon and about all kinds of stuff. And it doesn't mean I believe all of it. It means that I'm looking at it. I'm really interested because it's really curious, you know? And I don't know why so many people would look at that and then show me all these proofs and all these other things. So it makes me even more curious about the shadows. So if you look at the moon landing, you see the lunar module and all that, and you see the shadows, and there's multiple shadows, you know? And so why would they bring these kind of huge lights up on the moon with them to do the moon landing videos?
Well, let's not get into that.
It's the sun. All I'm saying is that I do a lot of wacky stuff. I do it strategically because they're questions that I just want answered that nobody's going to answer. So I'll put it out there and say, hey, I just want to know, you know, what's up with that?
Yeah.
You know, so my presence on a lot of stuff is gonna look pretty far out, and it's purposeful. I probably can't tell you all the purposes, but there's a couple of reasons why. Yeah. I am pretty wacky. I was asking a lot of questions, you know. I'm trying to figure stuff out. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, and I probably never will. But I want to know some of those answers.
Yeah.
And that's all. And I wanted to know all the answers about being transgender. I want to know all the answers about what happened to me, you know. And what happened to me isn't something that anybody should go through, you know.
Are you still on counseling?
No, I gave up on those people.
You did?
Yeah. I can do it myself better.
It's all internal?
Yeah. Well, I just read. If I'm going to read, I mean, not always a good book, but like I said, we have a library full of books from the 1800s. You know, because I don't believe anything written 1900 and past. Yeah. You know, after Rockefeller, you know, and all that, I don't believe any of it. You know, medical or anything. So if I do anything medical, it's going to have to be 1800, you know, right at 1899 and previous, 1850, I like better in previous, but it can't be a 1900s data. So
let's take a quick break, and if Courtney wants to come on, then she's more than welcome to.
I remember going back behind the window, I reload another magazine, and as soon as I pop out to shoot, it all goes black. The brutality of it all and really what we were up against, I had no left or right lateral limit to even comprehend that.
The body mutilations, the beheadings, the dismemberment,
the human shields.
All that.
But the night prior, my platoon commander comes in and he's like, everyone's gonna write their death letter.
Jesus Christ.
And then you hear stories of your friends that you went to boot camp with, the School of Infantry with, that are in Ramadi, that are fighting for their life at the same time that you're fighting for your life in Fallujah, just to find out half those dudes are dead. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember the feeling. And I have never been able to shake it ever since. That's when I had this out-of-body experience. At the time, I had no idea what happened. I thought I was dead. I saw this top-down view of what was going on. I could see my body. I could see my point man still shooting. I could see my other teammates on the ground. We were stacking so many bodies that we had to send patrols out to move the bodies because there was interrupting our fields of fire.
Holy shit.
There were so many bodies being stacked that the locals were driving up their ambulances and picking up bodies also.
Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Totally unexpected, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. But so me and Chris have had I think close to a 4-hour conversation now. And how did you guys meet?
We met, well, I had a class before we actually started talking where I did a project on a presentation on masculinity and femininity using the backdrop of Judith Butler's idea of genderism, that it's performative. And so that was the topic of the presentation. And to start it, I played Kristen's video for the class, and then I just went into just different forms of, masculine expression and feminine expression, and wrote a paper. And then I emailed Kristen and said, hey, I just did this project for my class. I don't know what I said. Like, you're cool. Like, I just felt it was respectful if I'm talking about someone and using their material to at least let them know, like, I just used you for a project. And then I got an email back that was, you spelled my name wrong, which was so embarrassing. But I spelled it E-N instead of I-N, and I never did it again after that. But yeah, we just it was like kind of a joke. And then there wasn't really much communication after that. And then there was a post on Facebook that Kristen made about being in a hole. And maybe like a week or so, not long before that, I had made a similar post about being down and, and just climbing out of it. And this is a veteran post. And so I said, oh, hey, I just made a post like this just recently. And then
So you're a veteran too?
Yeah. I did 12 years in the Air Force, air traffic control.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we kind of had that. And then we just started talking in like the DMs. And then Kristen said, call me. So I called. And then it just went from there. And I have a background in women and gender studies. And so there was interest in kind of what that was all about. I didn't have any preconceived notions about anything. It was more of just, what does this look like? I've learned academically what it is, but I didn't have that personal connection with anybody. So there was a lot to talk about. Just, we had military connection and then my academics. So there was just a lot in common, and we just started talking and hit it off. I mean, we were friends at first, and I think that's probably why we're so successful now, is just we just didn't go into it thinking anything, just getting to know each other and hearing about each other's lives, and then it just...
So this didn't start out as a romantic relationship?
No, not at all.
Interesting. And it developed into one?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
How quickly?
I think probably after my first visit, like the first time we met face to face, there was a lot of probably other interest there, but not real prominent. It was more of like, I don't know. I would say it was two people who had a lot in common and were both missing love. And when you bring two people together like that, and they're both giving and compassionate and caring, I mean, that's just what's going to happen, So that's really what just happened. We just hung out and were friends and talked about a lot of stuff. And talking really is what spawns a relationship. I'll just say this a little tidbit because we were talking about Instagram, but when you start communicating with someone, whether you're just like chit-chatting or whatever, you start forming a bond. And so I guess that's what happened. And so we just, I don't know, we bonded in that way, I guess, just with our life stories and all that.
Did you come from a traumatic childhood as well?
No, but, well, trauma is a difficult word. I don't know. I guess my childhood was not as favorable as people, but it wasn't as bad as others.
I guess what I'm kind of getting at is, where was the common ground?
Oh, we had a lot of common ground. The military is a huge common ground. And then I think with the gender dysphoria was a huge common ground.
You've dealt with that as well?
I have, yeah. When I was 15, I lost all of my hair to a medical condition from stress called alopecia universalis. It started off as alopecia areata, which is like a spot of baldness like on your head. And then just it progresses, and I eventually went into totalis, which is like all of the hair on my head from my neck up. And then as it progressed, I went into universalis, which is hair on my whole body. So I'm 15 in a new school and lost all of my hair. And so that was like a time in puberty when I was coming into my womanhood, and I'm like, oh my gosh, in my mind, the one thing that makes me a woman, my hair and my eyelash.
For some reason, I think Will Smith needs to be a spokesman for alopecia. I know it's cringeworthy and it's corny, but that will live in infamy forever. Especially when the dude is talking shit. Like, Chris Rock didn't even, like, go off on her. Like, for all he knew, like, that was, you know, her style. Like, you know, these celebrities, they rock different styles that you're just not sure. Like, maybe if somebody told him ahead of time, like, yo, she's suffering from this, you know, maybe kind of avoid that. He seems like the type of dude that, you know, is like, okay, you know, comedians will be comedians. And, you know, they always straddle the line between funny and offensive. But if they're, like, cool with somebody or whatever, they don't want to, you know, make them feel like shit. And he didn't go after her making her feel like shit. And it was funny because it was Marlon Wayans who did a stand-up, and he said, man, did you see that boy? It looked like Tupac just all of a sudden took control of his body. He's like, he got up like Tupac. He strutted up that stage like Tupac, all gangster walk. Came back with a bitch slap like Tupac. Went back down and was talking shit like Tupac, saying, keep my wife's name out of your, you know, given the history of Jada, whatever the frick her name is, what is it, Pinkett Smith or whatever, you know, her infatuation with Tupac before he got killed. And yeah, if your husband's sitting there laughing, then you look at him like, man, that's like ghetto-ness right there. That's like, yo, I don't even have to say a word. Go attack his ass. So whenever I hear alopecia now, that's what I think of.
Are gone. What do I do? Who's going to ever love me? Who's going to like me like this? Who's going to think I'm pretty? And just like Kristen was saying, like, there's this horrendous expectation for women to look a certain way to find a mate. I mean, our you know, part of our whole goal in life is to procreate and to reproduce and, you know, keep the earth going. And so if you feel, whether you are a man who is a transsexual and cross-dresses and you feel like you have to hide that, or you're a woman who is hiding alopecia under a wig, it's still hiding a part of yourself that you don't feel anyone's going to love. And so I think there was a lot of common ground there and a lot to learn from each other about womanhood. I mean, here I'm seeing someone do hair and makeup and all these things. And, you know, I lost my hair at 15, started wearing like crap wigs, joined the military when I was 20 in a predominantly male career field. I couldn't wear nail polish, all this other stuff. So until I got out of the Air Force, I really didn't, you know, I'm not really that good at doing those kinds of things because it just wasn't a part of my life. And so now I'm seeing someone doing those kinds of things. So I'm also fascinated by like I would say like the hyper feminine aspect, because I didn't have that either. So there was mutual understanding and mutual learning in some ways too. I know I hate to say that because it's like, I'm going to use biological here just for ease of conversation, but I find it repulsive to have to like identify myself as something else. But it's better than the word cis, so I'll just use biological right now. But there's this kind of weird space where trans women do things in such a hypered state that sometimes women can look at that and at times learn, right? Because it's a male basically showing what they want women to look like. And so in some ways, I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe is that what's like super attractive, or maybe that's how I should look, or that's how women should. There's just like a lot of complication. It's like a lot to unpack. But we had so much in common, and I think just mutual respect. Just like you've been through a lot, I've been through a lot. What can we learn from each other? You know, we might not agree on everything and all this, but if you can communicate that, just like, you know, just in this conversation you had with Kristen, like you now have a different opinion on trans people, or maybe not opinion, but different perspective. You might look a little bit differently. Instead of like, ooh, why are they wearing that? You might think, oh, that's a bummer. I wonder if they're going through something really sad.
I have a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
At this point.
And that doesn't happen unless you have conversations, and it's not going to happen unless you have really, really difficult conversations. Otherwise, you're just riding the surface in life. Yeah. So we had really deep conversations, like a lot. That helped me therapeutically, and I think helped Kristen therapeutically as well, mutual.
Yeah.
So we both like lifted each other up.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been together?
A couple years now.
All right, guys, I kept my big mug in the way for most of this. Instead of going back and recording it, because most of it's sound anyways, and it's mainly a podcast that he just films, I apologize that my big ass mug was in the way. So yeah, we'll go ahead and keep it this way. I apologize about that.
A couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So you met Kristen or Chris.
I say
when he
Kristen
identified
still, and I still use she pronouns just because it was just a habit at this point. And if I'm honest, you know, even though there's the detransitioning, society has just pounded into our heads. Like, if you don't use the right pronoun, someone's going to go kill themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And if you've ever felt suicidal, if you've ever felt sad or depressed or anxious, the last thing you want to do ever is make someone feel that way. And so when we first met, like, I think there was maybe like once I slipped up and said he or him, and I just was like, I'm never going to be able to face her again. Like, I can't even live with myself. And no one should feel that way either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, women should not be in a position to be forced to call someone else a woman that's not, but then also not want to hurt someone, you know? So it's just like walking on eggshells. And so when we first met, yeah, I would say Kristen was Kristen, and I really didn't care and used whatever pronouns and all that. And I think I was a little bit more naive at the time to like the whole big push of all this. To whereas now I'm a little bit more reluctant. Not because I don't care about how someone feels, definitely not that. Just because by using those pronouns, I'm also then hurting biological women who are being, what I feel like, being erased.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you love someone and want to support them through this and not hurt them, but also like not want to hurt society and see how this is going in the same direction. So, I mean, we navigated through it.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I ask if you're attracted to women?
I'm not.
You're not?
No.
And you fell in love with Kristen?
Mm-hmm.
So what was the conversation like when...
But that answer to that is I don't want to hurt any of my feelings by saying this. I don't see trans women as women.
Okay.
You might put on, like if you right now put on a dress, I'm not going to think you're a girl. No matter what you tell me, no matter what you do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Your mannerisms, your hobbies, your habits, the way you talk to me, the way you move, the way your hands are, like everything about you is a dude, is a man. So no matter what you do, I'm a biological straight woman is still going to feel that. Is still going to sense that. It's not, yeah, it's not, I don't know that there's a lot a man or a woman could do either to change that's really going to be like 1,000% convincing. I just don't, you know, it's more, I think society is more just catering to like, let me just be kind and happy and treat you well and cater to your dysphoria.
Yeah.
There's no one really that's like, I 100% believe you. You are this. It's more of like, I'm going to say that to make you feel really good because I don't want to hurt you. And I think that's where most people in society are at. But it's starting to turn, I think, because it's just gone too far.
Yeah. What did the initial conversation go like when Kristen decided to become Chris again?
I don't think it was like, I don't remember us having like a, well, today we're going to talk about detransitioning. Yeah. It just was like, you know, like Kristen said, there was, when we met, it was, I don't know that it was 50-50. I'd say in my mind, it was probably more 70-30, like Kristen, Chris, 70% Kristen, 30% Chris. But on some days it would be 100% Chris, less Kristen. You know what I mean? But I think overall, maybe more 70, 30, 50. I don't know. But maybe in my mind, I was just seeing Kristen, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah.
How has it affected your relationship at all?
No.
We're
like honest, like people could not understand us unless you recorded. We are like best friends.
Yeah.
We talk about everything. Nothing is off the table. I mean, when you can love someone, right? You know, I've said I love you to people before in my past relationships, but it's different. And I don't know that a lot of people will ever really ever reach that or feel that. When you know, Kristen could cut her arm off, his arm off, whatever, and I wouldn't care. Shave your head, I don't care. I don't, you know, the problem with society and what this trans stuff is highlighting is how so disgustingly superficial we are. Mm-hmm. That's why this is damaging women, because you don't see trans women a lot of the time in the news or whatever, just wearing sweats and, you know, why did you have to get boobs? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some women have a flat chest, but it's the trans women are only wanting to be a certain type of woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you know, you don't see it. You don't really see that, a trans woman with a flat chest. So I'm a woman with A-cup boobs. So is that one. So is that one. Or I don't have boobs because some women don't. They have a mastectomy. You know, but it's the trans women push into the stereotypes, which really starts to negate the validity of the dysphoria or the trans issue. It's like, are you really trans, or are you a man playing hyper stereotypes? You know, that's kind of what it starts to look like a little bit.
Wow, that's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Very.
And people will hear this, and I don't know, they form opinions, but there's just so much. Like, I challenge anyone who ever wants to have call me, have a conversation with me. You know, don't just hear 5 seconds of this and make some, you know, opinion about me. Like, talk to me, because you'll find that you like me more than you dislike, and I like you more than I dislike, you know?
Did you find Kristen attractive?
Yeah.
Or did you only fall in love with the...
Oh, no. Wildly attractive.
Really? Well, how do you feel now, then?
Same, if not more. I mean, you're married, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how long you've been married, but when you met your wife, did you find her attractive?
Absolutely.
Do you find her more attractive now?
Yes.
There's no difference than this relationship. It's exactly the same as any other normal relationship. It's just one. It would be like me asking you, or like me saying, like, you know, or it would be like maybe you asking Kristen, did you love Courtney when she was bald? Yes. Do you love her now that her hair grew back? Yes. Did anything change? No.
Well, I think,
you know,
I think what I'm kind of poking at is, did roles change at all? I mean, with the masculinity, because, you know, being more prominent now than it was.
It wasn't
2 years ago.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
No.
It's the exact same.
What I observed in my studies and in my personal life is you can't make a dude a woman, and you can't make a woman a dude. Okay? No matter what you put on, there's going to be things that these people do and say and like and hobbies and all this stuff that go in one direction. So no matter what Kristen did or however she presented at the time, the underlying persona, vibe, energy, whatever you want to call it, was masculine. There was no, like, you know,
I can see it.
Yeah, it's not like...
I can see it.
Yeah, okay,
I've seen the photos. I've seen the motorcycle photos. I've seen...
It's all the same person, just with the different exterior.
Well, what was it like to deal with the hormonal changes when he decided to come back? I mean...
I didn't know.
So he's going to show the photos of what he looked like when he was transitioned to a woman. He went pretty extensive, with the exception of getting his manhood removed. He really looked the part, which is odd because, he asks her if she was ever attracted to women. She's, adamantly says no, but he looked like a straight up woman. I mean, I was even shocked. I was like, wow, that's pretty hardcore right there. So just wanted to throw that out there when they show the pictures.
Notice any?
You didn't note there was no hormonal changes in mood or anything?
Mm-mm.
Really?
No.
Interesting.
If you're constantly loving on someone and being loved on, are you really going to have mood swings, bad moods, bad days, anger, frustration, depression, anxiety? Are you going to have any of those things?
I think so. I mean...
But very minor. Are they going to be super
I'll
noticeable?
give an example. My wife, when we just had a son, and there was some postpartum depression afterwards, and that was tough for us to get through. And that's hormonal changes.
For sure.
And so, I'm unfamiliar, and I'm just asking, did you see a lot of...
No.
Was there a lot of...
No, nothing.
Mood swings or...
Nothing.
Really?
I saw nothing. But then again, like, I don't know when, like, the hormones and stuff, I never saw Kristen give hormones or take hormones or anything like that.
Okay.
I would say, what I've noticed as far as, like, mood and things like that is just balancing all of this. How do you talk about the trans topic and not hurt people when you don't want to? And so that is what I've seen with the mood, and, like, is just the problem of, like, how to talk about this without hurting people and taking your words the wrong way. So, like, there's been a lot of, like, emotions with that, but not anything like medical or biological, like as far as, like, taking something or having any adverse reactions or coming off of hormones or nothing. I'm not seeing anything like that. More so just brought on by these conversations, not wanting to, say the wrong thing, but then also tell your truth, regardless of if that truth might hurt somebody else. Like, it's your story. So there's been a lot of that with that, but...
Well, I mean, there is a saying that relationships are a lot of work. What has been your guys' biggest challenge?
I would say getting Kristen comfortable enough and secure enough to talk about a lot of this, because I would say a lot of my confusion in the beginning was just, it's hard to ask someone, and then, like, obviously there's a mutual likeness that's beyond just friends, and I can only imagine asking someone something so personal, like, why do you cross-dress? Like, are they really going to want to talk about that in, like, a year or 6 months if they really like you and are afraid that talking about this is going to make you leave, or they're embarrassed? So a lot of the struggle in the beginning was just communication, like, really trying to gently get to the bottom of this, because I can't help or I can't understand if I don't know the information. So getting a lot of that out was difficult at first, really difficult.
Do you find it easier to be more direct, as time went on?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I still tread lightly. I still, like, I push until I know I've probably pushed, like, I'm getting to the edge, and then I just back off, and I'll think, okay, well, at least the questions, at least I vocalized it, and the question's there. So whenever you feel comfortable answering it, or if the topic comes up again, we'll talk about it. But yeah, the communication part was hard at first.
Do you guys know of any other? Do you have any other friends that are in a similar relationship?
No.
Have you ever thought about seeking that out?
No.
To find common ground?
No.
No?
No, because, everybody's experiences are different. And I think sometimes in relationships, if you have a problem in your personal relationship and you seek advice out elsewhere for somebody else in a relationship, I just think it's really easy for stuff to get convoluted and you get bad advice, or, I don't know. I'm kind of like an in-house person. If there's, like, a problem, I'd like to deal with it in-house instead of airing dirty laundry. I mean, I could go to a friend and say, oh, we're having this problem with this. And then the next day, Kristen and I are like 100% on cloud 9. But now my friend knows that there's a problem that we had, and I don't want my friend to think anything bad. So I just like to keep, that kind of stuff personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it would be with any relationship. You don't want to go and, as soon as you start talking about your problems in your relationship, now it's like someone's got ammunition on you. I just don't, it's not my thing.
Well, I didn't mean just that. I meant being able to relate.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think a lot of those questions would be so personal, so, like, intimate, And I don't know that there's anyone, I mean, does anyone else have a transgender SEAL partner that I can talk to?
Not that I know of.
I mean, you know what I mean? Where am I going to get advice from?
Yeah.
So.
This is so interesting to me, but
I think it's interesting to a lot of people. It's very fascinating. I mean, it is for me still, still trying to figure out how does it get this far? I mean, there's some questions I think I won't ever know because I don't have gender dysphoria on that level, So I can empathize and I can try to understand, but are we all ever going to get the answers to this? Probably not, unless we had like years of intimate conversations with each individual person to know their, trajectory. But it's impossible to kind of lump everyone in, and that's the problem. That's what's demolishing the United States, is that the trans umbrella has taken in everyone. Everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I could right now be like, oh, I'm going to be trans tomorrow because I feel this way and I felt this way, and there's no checks and balances for it. It's just a free for all, and so it's just. To understand each person, it would be so time consuming.
You have a 13-year-old son? Mm-hmm. How was that?
That's really good to talk about. Like, how did my son? So let me talk about this a little bit. My son was in middle school. And in the public school system right now, this trans thing is hot. Being gay is hot in school right now. If your rainbow flags everywhere, if you're kind of like, and I saw a post about grooming and about how if your teacher has rainbow flags in your room and you're not gay or trans or any of this, but you see that your teacher is favoring those who are, you might become that. And in that sense, that teacher is in a sense grooming, because it's placing favoritism or, whatever that favoritism looks like to the child that's trans or gay or whatever. So my son, I want to be careful because my son is 13. I don't want to, but he was getting kind of drawn into a rough crowd, a crowd that was like depressed and kids that were anxious and not doing so well. And my son is a bit different. He's not had a masculine figure in his life for a while, a positive one. And so because of that, he, wasn't really athletic in sports and all this kind of stuff. And so he's more games and theater and those kinds of things. And so he kind of found a friend group of other kids that didn't fit into the popular group. And in that group, the trans thing started to become really popular. Like 2 of his friends changed their names. And now I think this year they're not. But I was starting to worry, like really worry. And so academically, I started really focusing more on that. Because like, what if my son's gay? Do I know enough about this to be able to help him and understand this history? So I took queer theories, so I know all about that. So I started kind of like making sure I was prepared to handle that. And what I come to understand was it was circumstantial for him. And you hear him now. And I can say this because he's a kid, but, I hope nobody takes offense. But we were in the kitchen the other day, and he was like, wow, remember that time when I was almost gay? Like, think about that.
Man.
That's not something he was born with. That's not a person who's a homosexual and not born that way.
Yeah.
Remember that time when...
That's a pressure.
That was a pressure. And now he looks back, and he was, doing things he definitely would not do now. Not do, but more so wear. You know, like he had a pink hoodie that had strawberry milk on it. And he's like, no, I would never do that. But that's the kind of crowd, you know, and those two of his friends were changing their names, and like Alex or something, you know, non-binary and all this stuff. And so, again, when you're lonely and you meet other lonely people and those people start loving on you because you wear a pink hoodie and you might be them, and of course he's going to want to wear pink hoodies every day. You know, I mean, he's his own other topic. Like children who have experienced this, it's like a whole other issue. And I think that's why people now are starting to talk about this trans thing in a negative way. I feel like if the trans community just would have been trans and lived their lives and, you know, whatever, as adults, no one would have batted an eye. I mean, the whole United States loves queer people. Every company is obsessed with rainbow flags. You know, it's like, it's a big deal now. It's called pink washing, actually. But, you know, it's a big, you don't see this happening for any other group of people. And it's coming on to kids in a really unhealthy way.
That was David Chappelle's point, is that the strides that community has made, and when I say that, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. So let me say the strides and progress that LGBTQ community made to where it's so widely accepted. When you look back, go back on YouTube and look back on HIV/AIDS commercials. They are extremely what cancel culture would call aged poorly. Like the bullshit about, oh my God, Friends aged poorly. You know, Ace Ventura aged poorly. They're fucking fictional. The things that were real were these commercials about AIDS and how it was the homosexuals who did this and blah, blah, blah. And this is government FCC approved. That was airing to everybody. Could you imagine a commercial back then with almost, let's say, with nearly the same sentiments about Hispanics, about blacks, about Orientals, about you name it? Could you imagine a commercial that was sanctioned by the United States of America and the FCC allowed to be played, saying the same things that those commercials did back in the 80s and 90s? And his argument was how much the LGBTQ community leapfrogged racial tensions and issues is just mind-boggling and outstanding at the same time, he says. I mean, it's true. We have and still suffer from the same racial tension and bullshit, but the moment we accidentally say, you know, Ellen Page, oh, look at her. And since she now physically looks like a guy, it is inappropriate. It is rude. It is, think of any other type of cut down you want. That's what it is, because we didn't refer to them by the correct pronouns. So what she said right there is absolutely true. Everybody loves a gay flag. Everybody flies and sports a gay flag. Everybody, you know, is on board with it. And the moment you speak anything negative about it, cancel culture. Boom. Your ass is grass. And this isn't hate speech, because I don't hate any of these groups. I just hate the double-sided standards that so accepting on one side, but yet you're barely coming along at a snail's pace on the other. That's the fucked up part.
And so now I feel like, or even myself included, where I could care less if someone called themselves a trans woman and did all these things. I could really care. Now I'm seeing as, whoa, this is really bad. This is going in a really bad direction. There's women getting raped in prisons. There's public spaces now, and it's like, what's the big deal with a trans person going into a woman's restroom? Well, here's the deal. That trans umbrella can include anyone who says they're trans. That includes a pedophile. Where do children go to the restroom? Who do they go with? Their mom. Up to a pretty, sizable age. I mean, I was taking my son into the bathroom with me, into the women's room, because I didn't want him to go in the men's room, for God knows what he could be exposed to in there. So he comes with me. But now that space, if he goes into a different stall, I'm like, well, who else is in here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that men are rapists or pedophiles or this. I'm just saying that as that umbrella has opened to now they can identify as a female and go into those spaces and have easier predatory access at the expense of someone else. Yeah. And that's where it's gotten really ugly. And that's where I started to really be nervous, kind of. I think I think Kristen and I did have kind of a tenuous point where I started seeing like all this really negative stuff happen, even to the point where we can't even define what a woman is. And I am one. And so then I'm like, geez, as if I don't have enough as it is. The very foundation of my being, taken away. And so then I never saw Kristen in a negative light, but I did start to see the negative aspects of transgenderism and whatever that means. Most people don't even know what that means because the word it's just kind of new. Mm-hmm. It just has taken on every single ailment that a person could have. And they're like, oh, you're trans. You don't have anything else. You're just trans. You don't have anxiety or depression. You don't hate yourself. You're just trans. And that can be anybody.
Yeah, I'm beginning to realize that is what's happening with well, that's at least what happened with Chris.
Yeah.
It seemed like.
Yeah. And the love bombing part is like the biggest part of it because, like Kristen said, that was established by the Mooney cult. Like that's an actual recruitment technique that this cult would do. Like that's where it came from to get to recruit people. And so how many people right now in the world can say that their love meter is at 100%? I would love to meet those people that are 100%. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty high right now. I just love my life, and I'm in love with Kristen, and I feel like mine finally is getting high. But a lot of people are their love meter's low. Everyone is susceptible. Everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a SEAL Team 6 or you're the president or whatever. Like, if you do not feel loved in this world, you are going to do whatever it takes to find it. End of story. Like, it doesn't matter what you have. Like, everyone deserves and needs to feel loved. And most of these people who transition, just from my observance, their love meter was like rock bottom. In my
is anybody arguing that? Your point that
I don't know what people are arguing about this, really. I don't know. I think I don't know. I don't know what the main argument is or what the main, I think maybe perhaps it's, no, I'm just trans. I was born this way. It's not because of any other thing. I have loving parents, I have this, and maybe that's like a rare case. But in just what I've seen, it's not the case.
Yeah.
I took a class. It was called The Queer Art of Drag. And it's just learning about drag culture, how it stemmed, what it means artfully. All just is as deep into it as you can get. And in that class, we had a few drag performers just talk in the class. 2 of them were male trans women. Both of them in that class said, the first one, I remember he said that he was in a bad relationship with someone. It was just not good. He didn't feel happy, all this stuff. He was really depressed. Went to his friend's house, who was a drag queen, and the friend said, "Hey, let me just put you in drag for fun. Like, let's just change your mood. Let's just have a good time." And so he said, "Okay." And his friend put drag on him, put makeup and all that, got him dressed up in drag, and they went out, and he was love bombed. "Girl, you look so good. Oh my gosh." How is that going to make him feel? Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he started to that's when he thought, maybe I should transition. He had never thought of it until up until that point. And this was, I don't remember what his age was. It's like 20s or 30s. Another guy, drag guy, teaches at a well-known university. He said, I don't really know if I'm trans yet or not. So in university, where this transgenderism is being pushed, you're in like the most hypocritical space ever. Because you can't say, well, he just said he wasn't sure. No, he's trans. It's just he's trans. Or, well, this person just said that they really weren't until this happened. Nope, they're trans. Like, there's no real dissection of like what is causing this or why people are doing this. It's just, it is. You just accept them, and if you don't, you're transphobic or you're homophobic or you're racist or you're a bigot or you're any of these other things. But there's two clear examples of two men over the age of 20 who, one is, maybe transitioning, and the other one transitioned because they were extremely unhappy and put on drag and got love bombed. So, how in the world the medical community could think to do this to kids is so disgusting. Did any of them go and take these classes? And hear these people talk?
Where's the line for you?
As far as transitioning?
Yeah.
I mean, no professional, I'm not a doctor, but, there are studies that say the brain development is not into your 20s. I would say just don't do this to kids. I personally am on the opposite spectrum of thinking about age, where I feel like our age for everything is way too low. And this is just a weird experience I had. I looked back at a picture of my mom. She was, I don't know, 20 maybe, 3 kids. And I look at her face in the photo and I was like, this is a little kid. She is so young to be out and having children and but it's like 18, you're out the door. But really? I mean, is that just something that we've become so normal and accustomed to, that 18 is an adult? So you've got the, part of the world that's saying, let's lower the age of consent. And I'm thinking, maybe this is an issue. We're sending 18-year-olds out into the world who are getting student loans, credit card debt, car loan debt, all this other stuff, because are they really adults at this point? If the brain is not developed until you're 25 years old, then where did 18 come from? It's more than just, when thinking about children transitioning, I started thinking about a lot of things that we allow children or even 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds to do that's really, really young without the proper brain development to understand the full consequences of what they're doing, whether it be good or bad. You know what I mean? And so I think for me, if I were to just go along with society, I would say, don't do this to kids. Do what you want to do when you're 18. If you feel like that's going to change your life and make you feel less stress and less unhappiness, then that's for you. That would be like someone, don't wear a wig. Well, I'm going to because it makes me feel good. Do what makes you feel your best self. But don't start pushing this on children who cannot make this decision for themselves. That's where I draw the line. No puberty blockers. I don't agree with that at all. I think, before I was a women and gender studies major, I was a biology major. That's my actual passion, is biology. And so, as a society, we are so uneducated about how our own body works. We don't know. We don't know every single thing, and it would take a lot of study, just like it took me a lot of study learning about the human body and every single function and every single thing that it does. And when you realize how specialized your system is and how one little thing can set off, a cascade of events of atrocity to your body, you would really think twice about doing that. But right now, we're in a society that's push, 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 look this way, look this way, look this way, I am super scared of like I don't want to put anything in my body that's bad. No, I'm cautious. However, when it comes to my looks, I'll get Botox in my face. That's food poisoning. Botulism toxin injected into my face so I could look a certain way to please people. It's just like, we all have it. As a society, though, we have to start understanding we're human beings. We all look a certain way and love on each other for however we look, because it's affecting all of us. It's affecting everybody. So I guess if I draw the line, I don't agree with puberty blockers at all. I don't think children should be medically transitioned. Surely not removing body parts. I mean, I heard a thing with Chloe Cole, and she said, I realized I'm not going to be able to breastfeed my children. And I felt sick. Like, I felt like I got punched in like the deepest part of my womanhood, because I felt pain for her that was just unimaginable, because she has to live with that now.
No.
She's going to have a baby maybe and think, what have I done? That's a lifelong, thing for her that somebody else did. And that person that did that is,
I mean, it's almost an irreversible decision. I mean,
That
I just
actually
sat
is.
there and I listened to Chris say that,
yeah.
or maybe it was you, I can't remember, but him looking at himself in the mirror saying, I've destroyed myself. And he can't go back to exactly the way that he looks. And that's a 56-year-old man. I think it would be good to see not just encouragement from the mental health community, and maybe let's dig in and actually find out what's really going on before we move forward to this, definitely it shouldn't be happening to kids, but as an adult, I mean, it was pushed on them.
Should it be happening as an adult? Like,
And that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is there was I don't know if discouragement is the correct terminology or the correct word, but there should definitely be some more looking into, and not only encouragement to do it, especially when, we just dug into Chris's childhood and everything that took place there, and that none of that went into accountability of or the PTSD or the traumatic brain injury when he got blown up. I mean, they didn't look into any of this to see if any of that, might have played a role in this.
Right.
And it did.
Yeah, huge role. And a lot of the times there's factors in people's lives that are greatly influencing this. And if you lessen those, if you allow if you give the person the tools to cope with those things, that might not be the avenue that they take. Because now, what happened? Okay, so there's this push, right? It's all over the news. It's in Vanderbilt. It's everywhere. Just push to allow kids to transition, allow people to transition. Well, now we're starting to see accounts of detransitioners. So now society is going to be left with people who didn't love themselves, so they transitioned. Then they detransitioned, and they have scars or regret. So then did they go back to not loving themselves? Like, was the problem ever really fixed? Because now it's just another, added layer of guilt or regret that the person didn't have. The person wasn't managing well before.
Yeah.
Then you add on guilt, regret, fear, all this other stuff, because a lot of people that detransition, which is another thing, that word is not mentioned in women and gender studies. Detransitioners are unheard of. It's like they don't exist. They're like the fake, like they never really trans if they detransitioned. That's the problem with trans. If someone has gender dysphoria, they can heal from that, right? You can go and get help for gender dysphoria. You can get therapy for that. If you're trans, you're trans. If you're an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic for life. It's like the best example. Now, I don't believe in that either. I feel like people aren't alcoholics for life. They can quit drinking. And if you quit, you quit. You're not an alcoholic anymore. You're not doing it anymore. But with that trans label, by getting rid of those terms, in psychology, you've put a permanent label on someone. And so now people who are like, well, I fell in love and got a new job and my life's great. And you know what? I'm not really dealing with all those issues I was anymore. I don't really feel the need to do this anymore. They're stuck. And if they detransition, they are so shunned from that community. Like death threats, you're fake, you were never real trans, you're not one of us. And it's like, are you serious? Like, I see this stuff that people send Chris in that community, the community of love and welcome and peace and love is love and all that. Oh no, it's not. It's only that way if you go with that narrative, if you agree with everything they say. If you're a woman who loves yourself, nah, forget it. You're transphobic.
Yeah.
If you're a detransitioner, well, you were never really trans in the first place. You're fake. Get out of here. I mean, just go look on the comments. You'll be blown away.
Wow.
By this. So then you get people who are healed, but maybe all of their friends, because they were trans for 5, 10, 15 years, all of their friends are in that community. Now they feel like they can't detransition or they can't heal. Why? Because misery loves company. And if you're happy and you're detransitioned or you've healed yourself, well, you're not one of us anymore.
Yeah.
You're not self-loathing and wishing you were something else and all this other stuff. You're just happy and content with who you are.
Yeah. How long has this been going on with children?
I think for a while, but it just
how many years? 5 years?
Seems like for the
years?
past probably 10 years, maybe.
It's going to be real interesting to see what happens in another 10 years.
Oh, it's
when these kids become adults.
How sad.
And it's going to be interesting to watch the relationship between their parents as well.
What about the parents? What about a parent who was told your kid's going to kill themselves if you don't allow them to transition?
I don't know if you guys ever pay attention to comedy gatherings, but there was, I can't remember who they called in, but there was a speaker there, and one of the senators said, the speaker was for, transgenderism, a unisex bathroom, this and that. So there was a very petite man dressed like a woman who claimed to be transgender, goes in the women's bathroom, and I guess in the women's bathroom they have, a floor-to-ceiling mirror, and he's wearing a skirt, I guess, a dress, I don't know, past his knees, a dress or a skirt or whatever, and he's fucking masturbating in front of the mirror. And every time a woman walks in, he puts his shit down, straightens himself out. When they leave, does the same thing again. And you could find it on YouTube, of course, the censored version and everything. But they're exactly right. It's not hatred towards the trans community. What it does do, though, it allows these child predators an excuse to have better access to these children. I might get the name wrong, but you could look it up. There is 100% an actual organization that meets at different hotels once a year. I want to say its name is NAMBLA. The National, or NAMBLA or something like that. The National Organization for Boy-Loving Men. And this is an honest to God, real fucking gathering. So when they're talking about lowering the age of consent, if that were even to make the ballot, I think I'd fucking leave America. and make sure my daughter was with me, because there is no goddamn way in hell. I mean, you're gonna see deaths and murders rise like none other, because all of a sudden these men think that they have free and clear access. You gotta be kidding me if you think that's what's gonna happen. If they raise that consent, it would be fucking ridiculous.
What parent is going to be like, just go kill yourself? No. They're going to be like, do whatever you need to do to stay alive. I'm going to keep you alive. You know? And then the child's out of school where they're not being bullied and, you know, like all these other things that happen in high school. They're out of it. They're on their own. They maybe meet someone and they're like, ooh, what did I do? I'm not this anymore. Then imagine the parent. When the kid's like, Mom, Dad, I'm not this anymore. I messed up. And then the parent's like, oh my gosh. Like I can't even imagine. I cannot imagine that. I cannot imagine Chloe Cole's parents, like how they must feel. Being told by a doctor, your daughter's going to kill herself if you don't cut her boobs off. And now the daughter's like, and then the parents are like, so that's another thing. You know, people are like, how could a Navy SEAL get convinced to do this? How could a parent get convinced to let their kid cut their boobs off? It's all the same pressure. It's all the same fear. It's all the same pressure. It's all the same, you know? And now we're going to have all of those people. So all the parents who allowed this now needing mental help because they feel guilty and, you know, because now their kid is, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you think a lot of parents are pushing this on their kids for attention? They're
doing it for, they're social justice warriors.
Oh my God.
It's just all, it's fake. Yeah, it's virtue signaling. It's because right now, like, I don't know how it is right now, but I've seen this in the news where people are losing their jobs. Okay, Jordan Peterson, prime example. If he's not using pronouns, he's going to lose his job, right? Mm-hmm. So if you know that, and you love your job, and you love your paycheck, you're going to use the pronouns. Mm-hmm. You're going to do whatever it is that they're wanting. You know, it's gotten tyrannical at this point because now you don't even have the choice to agree with it or not. If you don't, I'm gonna cancel culture. That's the weapon. That's the weapon of mass destruction that the left has. It's cancel culture.
Yeah.
They'll ruin your job, ruin your account, ruin your everything because you don't agree with whatever. So now, you know, you have people that can't. That are so afraid of being othered that they're going to go along with it and want to be accepted by the crowd that's doing the damage, right?
Yeah.
If you've got some big, huge person standing next to you and they're looking out at a crowd and they're just swinging an axe and just cutting whoever doesn't agree with them, where are you going to stand? Out in the crowd, or are you going to stand right next to the person and you can't get hit with the axe? That's what society is doing.
Yeah.
They are clinging to the person with the axe. And the axe that's swinging is transhumanism. And you're like, I'm just going to go along with it and be on the good side. So you know what? My kid's trans. You know, there's videos out of, you know, there's one out where this little boy, his mom and his brother are on camera and they're talking about like pride praise or pride or whatever. And the little boy says, well, my mom doesn't care if I'm gay or lesbian or whatever. She just cares that I'm a part of it. And the like, what do you mean? And then the little boy, and it's all like, I don't know how it got out. Like, I don't know why the mom released this, but he goes, well, unless it was live. And he's like, well, you're just going to make me do it if I'm not doing it or something like that. Like the mom was forcing the kid to be a part of this, even though he wasn't, you know, gay or anything.
Doesn't know the difference.
And so it was like, it's more or less, it's not I'm going to make you gay or make you trans, but I'm going to make you support this. Because if you don't, you're not going to make it in society, because right now society has no tolerance for people who have opposing beliefs.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, you know, it's like that
in everything right now.
Yeah.
It's like that in the COVID arena. It's like that in the trans arena.
Yeah.
It's like that in the race arena.
Yeah.
It's running rampant.
Yeah, I mean, it's a line, right? A very clear line. You're either on one side or the other. And you want to make sure you're in. And if you think I'm going to survive on the side that's supporting this, then people are going to do it.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be people that's like, I'm going to die on this hill. I'm not going to support this. Like, this is not worth it.
So having been through, what you guys have been through as a couple, what advice do you have for somebody whose partner's thinking about transitioning or detransitioning?
I think with transitioning, I would really ask, like, what is it about you that feels, this way? What feels like if I were, part of some of the things that I used to ask Kristen are like, what feels like a woman to you? Like, what do you do or what do you think? Like, what are you, aside from anything you could put on or any kind of appearance, what are you doing and thinking that you think is more woman-like than man-like? And that is where the hang-up happens I think for a lot of people. Because, like was mentioned, it's more of like an observing mimicry than like, I want to feel like that. I want to be that. What do I need to do to present, like, and so you look at like Dylan Mulvaney, for example. It's 1000% stereotyped, like, oh, I went to the ladies' room and like the girl next to me asked me under the toilet for a tampon. Like, that didn't happen. It's just a stereotypical thing that men think happens to women in restrooms. And yeah, it might, or it has, but to act it, it's just all, it's all...
It's pretend.
Pretend. It's all pretend. It's all pretend.
At what point do you think you go into a supporting role?
That's a different, now see, that I don't know that I can answer because I've not, when I met Kristen, she was already Kristen. Mm-hmm. There was no, I didn't have to like go from like man to support you into being a woman. I don't know how that would look for me now. 2 years ago, when I was, a little bit more under the influence of like leftist ideology, I might have answered that totally different. More of like, oh, okay, well, just kind of laissez-faire, blah about it. Not really thinking, just writing the surface. That's probably the answer I would have given. Now, I think with Kristen, it's different because it's already been established. Like the feminine's already been established. But if it was just like, if I was just in a relationship with, a male for 10 years, like a dude male, and like no inclination, no anything of this. And then they're like, I think that, I would still support them, but not maybe, I don't know, probably the intimacy would lack. The intimacy would go down. So maybe it would go into more of like a friendship supporting role, because probably that person would be pursuing other things, would want to really change their life and pursue different things anyways. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's difficult. It would be problematic for me now, for sure. Seeing what's happening to women just in general, that would be really problematic for me to be in a relationship with a man now who transitioned into a woman. With Kristen, I don't know. I don't see her as a woman, but I don't know. It's almost like
you never saw her as a woman, so you were already somewhat in a supporting role for the detransition.
I was in a supporting role for both. Like when we met, I was buying women's clothes. I was doing whatever, because like I said, like when we met, it was two people who had a lot to share with each other who just shared it. And so I wasn't looking to like get anything out of it more than just like, hey, you're cool, you've been through a lot, hey, like maybe we can talk and like help each other out. Like it wasn't ever, I had no like ulterior motives or any kind of intention. So I immediately was in a supporting role. You know, and so that role is, you know, it would be much harder to be in a supporting role from one person going into a new gender than just going to the one they already were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It's
can
just like it
understand that.
kind of, and because like I think some of the transitioning had already happened. Like in everyday life, you would not know probably, you know, other than like boobs or something. But like just general like mannerisms or, you know, it's not like, it wasn't like, I don't know. I wouldn't say it was hanging out. It was like hanging out with a girl or a guy. But there were some really cool aspects of it, for sure. Like fun aspects. Like, you know, how many women get to be like, can I... Okay, this is really actually funny. Like, I didn't wear a lot of makeup. I still don't. I didn't have a lot of, like, feminine, like, real, like, wild feminine. Like, I've just recently also come into a lot of my femininity. I got out of an abusive marriage that was really horrible. And now I'm just kind of, like, exploring. So, like, with Kristen, I was like, hey, like... you got really good makeup, like way better stuff than I have. And so like how many people get to have that relationship where I'm like, hey, can I get that lip liner? Can I try that? Like I never even wore lip liner before, you know? So there are some like really fun, there is a fun, like happy side too. That's not like weird, you know, like how many people get to say that or, you know, like whatever, like little tips or something that I didn't know, you know, that's just because someone wanting to be a girl and examining a girl so much might pick up on stuff that me just being a girl didn't even notice because I just am it.
Yeah.
You know, so there was a lot of like, you know, fun kind of things like that. There was a lot less pressure about my hair, like for sure, like wearing wigs because you know, trans people wear wigs, drag queens wear wigs. So there was a lot less of like, you're going to judge me for how I look, which was cool. That was like a big part of it. A lot going into a relationship with no judgment. Like, how can you judge me? We both have something that we have insecurities about, you know? So that was good.
Yeah. Interesting. I never would have thought of that. But,
Yeah.
well, Courtney, I really appreciate you coming on and good luck with the wedding and with everything. So
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey guys, let me tell you about this subscription service that I've been working real hard on called Vigilance Elite Patreon. Basically on Patreon, we have it broken up into 3 different tiers. We got tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Let's dive in. Our tier 1 patrons get all the... For our tier 2 patrons, drills in the 15th, which is VT, and it's very drive on. So thank you for all the support. See you on Patreon. All right, Chris, we just had your fiance Courtney on to get her perspective on everything, and I want to kind of wrap this up. So I think one of the most important questions I'm going to ask you is for anybody that's thinking about transitioning genders, do you have any advice for them before they go through with it?
Wow. Yeah, it's tough. I would say there used to be these protocols, and it's a Harry Benjamin per girls. And now they do this W-Path and some other stuff, but that's all been changed to meet the current narrative or ideology, whatever they want. So they're pushing people through really fast. And so the protocols have all changed. And the protocols I'm talking about are the amount of counseling sessions you have to do before you can start any hormones or anything else. It's the amount of time you spend living as it's like a real life experience is what they call it. And so if I was going to transition from male to female, I would have to do 30 mental health counseling sessions and have that signed off that I did 30 sessions talking about all this stuff and really digging in deep. then I would also have to live the real life experience as the gender you're going into, male or female. So I would have had to live as the female gender, as a woman, trans woman, for a year. And then at that time, then you would get the paperwork and all the stuff. Then you could start doing the hormones and all the other stuff. Now, all of that has changed, and they basically can do no sessions. You can walk in there and just say, I'm transgender, and then you start getting hormones and everything else. Pretty much, or it's one session or something, it's a signature. But the problem with that also is that they're scamming the whole system, is that you can get whatever paperwork you want for money. So you go into those crooked psychiatrists or whatever, or whoever would give you the paper, and you pay them enough money and they're going to say 30 sessions or whatever. So there's a lot of gaming going on. But they don't even require 30 sessions. They don't even require any sessions. You can walk in on session 1, you'll be on hormones, and then in a week later, you might be getting surgery. So it's just so incredibly fast, and you're not really investigating with a professional. And that's why, I mean, I kind of bash the psychology, the whole, group pretty badly because of what they're allowing to happen. Now, just like I said, the doctors are kind of stuck in the middle between insurance and money and the administration. It's going to be the same thing with a psychologist. So there's something going on that they will not admit to. The doctors won't admit it, the psychologists won't admit it. And if those folks start standing up, then this will change. If the doctors start standing up and telling the truth, this will change. Psychologists will start standing up, telling the truth, this will change. But just like everybody else, we're all afraid. The cancel culture and losing your job and everything else and fines. You'll be imprisoned. It's just ridiculous. So one of these days, if somebody starts standing up and they start doing it, and I feel like I'm almost this first one, like really talking about some of the deep stuff. And Courtney's the same thing. Like we both said a lot of stuff today that's not really out there, I don't think. And if it is out there, it's kind of hidden, or they mark it with those stupid little labels talking about how bad this person is, and it might happen, this one too, that we're going to be marked as haters and as phobias and all the other stuff, which is totally opposite of who we are as people. And the fact is you're transgender and you're a good person, you did it all as an adult and whatever, and you're not doing all these rainbow flags and love bombing and doing all that stuff, then I would never have a problem ever, and you would probably be a friend of mine. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't have any problem with that. But when they start doing all the things with all those love bombing and all these rainbow flags and all this push towards it, and the push, like I said, is not the people, and it's not the doctors, it's money. And like I said, these doctors have these gender clinics, and they're making $450,000 per surgery, which is just ridiculous. So in every year, you have these gender clinics with one doctor making millions for the hospital. They're pulling in huge money. And the really big hospitals, the university-connected hospitals, the ones that are really big, like Johns Hopkins and all the rest of them, they're pulling in, hundreds of millions of dollars for gender stuff. Now, are they going to give that up very easily? No, they're not. And they're going to push these doctors. And these doctors are caught. And if they don't do the job, they're fired. And another doctor will take their place. And that's the problem. If these doctors start speaking up, and I have a lot of connections with doctors because they have heard me speak up and speak just like I'm speaking right now. And they call me and they talk to me, and they're giving me some of the inside info about the cost and about this and about how the shortcuts are being taken. These doctors need to start standing up. You took a Hippocratic oath, and you should be healing people, not damaging them. And just like I said, out of those 100 transgender people with all these surgeries and all that other stuff, just like Chloe, and we keep hearing Chloe Cole up because she's one of the first adults that are coming out really hardcore as detransitioning and all that. And I can't stand that word because there's no such thing. It never happened in the first place, and it's not a D. It's not a detransition because it didn't happen. The thing with Chloe, though, she's one of the first adults that had, at 15 years old, a double mastectomy. There's going to be a lot more of these kids that had it happen when they were kids. And as they grow up, they're starting to learn this stuff. Now in Sweden, you can see it, and you can look this data up if you want to. There's this Swedish J-curve with all this gender ideology, all this gender stuff. The Swedes saw it going like normal for decades, just like this, because the Swedes are about 20 years ahead of us. They've been doing this for a long time. It is Sweden, yeah, it is. So it goes like this, and then suddenly it goes, and it shoots way up. And it was like 1,500% increase, or no, might have been non-binary. But there's these huge increases, like ridiculous. And then the Swedish government were going, what is going on here? And they put brakes on, and they started re-looking at it and really studying and finding out, because this isn't normal. For them to go from a line like this for decades and then choosh, something happened. And that's what's happening in America right now. And so why can't the American government look at this and take a look at all this other data and know that this is happening right now in America? And if we don't put the brakes on it, it's going to get worse. And you're going to have all these kids going to be damaged and really hurt. All these parents. You think we have some problems right now? 10 years from right now, 5 years from right now, you're going to start seeing what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So, and the wrap up is that I don't have fear of transgender. I don't have homophobia, transphobia, or any of those phobias. That is a tactic being used. It's a ridicule tactic to make us stop and make us shut up. I'm not going to shut up. And the more they push me and try to make me shut up, I'm going to talk louder. I'm going to talk more. And like I said, I don't want to do these podcasts. I don't want to go on the news. I did that thing with Tucker Carlson one time, and it was pretty quick. It was like 4 minutes. It was quick. And basically what I said there, I'm still standing by. I said, I love people, and I love humanity. I love people, and I love our world. And I respect our world, and I respect us as human beings and this body that I have that was given by the grace of God. And I think that we need to stop all this damage. There has to be something. And like I said earlier, it's like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now. I'm a human being that went through something. I went through something that damaged me. And I did it all as an adult. And now I'm looking at what they're doing now to the kids. So it has nothing to do with religion or anything else. Take that off the table. If you're a human being and you had something happen to you as an adult, and then you start looking down there and you start seeing kids, the same thing's happening to them, wouldn't you want to speak up? It's the right thing to do, And so what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to save all those kids that are pulling into this, that are not. They have gender dysphoria, they have all kinds of other things. They have depression, anxiety. They're just teenagers with hormones, and they're just not liked, or they hate their bodies, or they're just growing up, They don't have a chance. And so this reminds me of a story that will give you a little more view into who I am and how far I will push stuff and how far I stand by my word and what it really means. So I was at the team, and we were doing missions, and we were going after some real big bad dudes. And I have a ton of those stories, but I only tell like 2 of them. But this one story is important because it's who I am. So we're going to this house, we're doing the clearing, we're walking through, and we're doing all this stuff, but we're doing it real quiet because we haven't gone hot yet. So it's all like the cover, we're just going through it super quiet. And I get up through this room, and I get up these stairs, and I take this right, and at the end of this hallway, I didn't know how fast I was going pretty quick. But we're pretty good about that and checking stuff, but for whatever reason, I went through the door, and it didn't have the number 2, so I was going out there alone. And out on this rooftop, so it was a door that opened out on the rooftop. And in Afghanistan, they sleep on the roofs all the time because it's really hot in there and they just want to be out in the cool air. And it's the stars. It's beautiful to sleep out there on these rooftops. Plus, there's the security points. So this guy was up there on security, pulling security for his family and for the compound. And he had the AK, and he's sitting there. And so basically, you see me, I have all the best equipment. The lasers, the nogs, the night vision, all the stuff. And I'm using some terminology that put night vision and lasers in the gun, and it's totally prepped out my body armor. And we have our radios on the side with the antennas and all that stuff. So if you look at me with this green glow in there, and there's all this tech and there's lasers and all this stuff, I'm like an alien being, I'm looking very high tech and very alien looking. And then I look at this guy, and in retrospect, I'm looking at this guy, and he's down there with bare feet and dirty and just raggy hair and his beard, and he had his one, that thing they wear. And I used to know all these things. I used to speak some of the language, but it's kind of washed all that out. But I see this guy up there, and he's laying there sleeping. He's just starting to wake up because there's some noise and stuff that's starting to happen, because even the animals start waking up in the compound, So eventually people start waking. And the guy's just getting up, and he sees it, and he's reaching up, and he's got his AK, starts coming up at me. But I'm already off safe, and I'm figuring I'm going. It was a split second. I set a record at SHAW's shooting, camp, the plate shooting. I'm on that top 10 because I'm a fast shooter. And so I'm sitting there just waiting. I'm just there. And dude's getting up and he's swinging up. And I'm going, don't. And I'm just looking at him going, don't do it. And I'm in my head and I'm just praying. It's like all of it's going, all my energy is going to that guy. Drop it. And it's like such a close. And if he was just like this much further with that barrel, and I was just like watching all of it. Why was I doing that? No rules of engagement. I could have taken him right when I walked out on there because he was up there in security and had a gun next to him. Done. But I didn't. I was going towards him. I was still walking towards him, closing the distance. And then the guy just like right there goes, and he drops it because he saw it. So it was alien versus caveman. And I'm sitting there for about whatever seconds it took me walking towards this caveman as an alien. Different language, different religion, different culture, different everything. Super high tech and this guy with dirt. Why was I doing that? For seconds, I was walking towards this guy. Didn't shoot. I could have. I was allowed to. Should have. I actually got in trouble because there was guys on other rooftops and there was other stuff going on in the compound. And one guy, and I can't remember who it was. I could if I really thought about it. But he saw what was going on my rooftop. He saw across because it was only maybe as wide as this room. It's not huge distances. So he saw what was going on over there. He saw it. And when we got done with the whole thing and the guy was cuffed, because basically he dropped the gun and I kicked it away and I cuffed him up, put him against the wall. And because I did all the interrogations. So because I was ASOT type guy and I did all that stuff. So I was also the interrogator. So I'm talking to this guy through my terp. And because I was like that agency ASOT guy, I always had a terp because I was always doing this stuff. So he's my terp. And so interpreter. So he was the guy that did all the local posture. And I spoke some of it, but not all of it. He, I don't even speak very much at all. It's like team guy, you know, you know, hands up and where's the bomb and this stupid stuff. But I was talking to him and he just seemed like a pretty good dude. This is after all the action, after everything was done and everything's. So I'm just talking to him and I'm getting intel and I'm trying to work with him. And he didn't know anything. And the guy was like, he was not anybody we'd ever want. And I was like, just leave this guy. And then one of the other guys was like, no, we should take him, you know, and get one. You got a guy and he had a gun, he was security. I was like, no, man, I was going to leave this dude. And so because I had enough voice over it, because I was the interrogator, I was the guy doing all this stuff, but I was also the guy that ran source operations. So I was the field officer, you know, I was a recruiter, you know, and so I told them we need to leave this guy, and they did. And so we took off, and I, you know, it was good, done.
You spared his life.
Spared his life, but it was seconds of me walking up on him. 2 weeks later, I'm walking through a bazaar. And if you've ever seen pictures of me, I have this big, bright red beard, unless I dye it. And over there, I dyed it a lot because I had to get it darker. But if you see me, I had a really red beard. And he used to call me Red Beard or Caveman. So it was always something about that. So 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it was a little while later, I'm walking through a bazaar. And I got this guy running towards me and he's saying something in Pashto. And so I start drawing my pistol because I had my long gun in the truck. And so I start drawing my pistol out because we're in a bazaar where it's like, it's not a big deal. So, and it was right there on the base. It was one of the bazaars kind of attached to the base. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was protected and there was guys all over and we had security towers like right there. So we just brought pistols in there. We just wanted to be, you know. And so I start reaching in and getting my pistol out and Turp puts my hand down and says, no, he's saying thank you. It's like, and I was like, and me and him have been working for a long time and I had super trust. And it's the dude, it's the guy. And he sees me and he's saying thank you and he hugs me. He says, come back to my shop. And so I go back to his shop. Start talking to him and we become friends, you know, and I get a really great discount on a rug, you know, because he had his really cool shop. So it's a good story, huh?
Damn.
That's not the whole story.
It was the guy?
It was the guy. And so what do you think I did with that guy? So it became this amazing thing who I actually gave him over to another agency. But it was amazing. And so we're talking to the guy. Yeah. So I'm talking to the guy and it's amazing and good stuff. And because the guy was very aware, because he ran that business, he was always there. He was always traveling around. Saw a lot of stuff. So amazing. And we became friends. And so the point of the story is not all that, the fact that he became a friend or he ended up being good for us. But the conversations I had with him was about, I don't want to be here, and I know that y'all don't want us to be here, so what can we do to get all these foreigners out? And you know, if you've been in Afghanistan, it wasn't really the Afghanis that were doing most of the trouble, you know? It was everybody else. It was all these jihadists coming in there and trying to kill Americans. Yeah. Just like when I was in Iraq, I got shot by more Iranians in the beginning than I did Iraqis. They were shooting at us all the time because they were paying money to go on the border right there with the fence and shooting across the Shat al-Arab and trying to get us across the river. The Tigris Euphrates, and they come down, and then you have that one strip. Well, the Iranians were shooting across at us, and all the time. And but we weren't allowed to talk about that. But they're jihadists, and they just want to kill Americans. You know,
Yeah.
it's a bonus for them. They get bonuses, I guess, when they go to heaven or something, which is ridiculous. You know, it's an Abrahamic religion. You know, we're also part of the Abrahamic religions. Why can't we all get along or something like that? But the whole point of the story is the fact that I didn't shoot right away, and the guy was, I was in trouble. They were like, "Why did you do that? You brought us all in danger." I was like, "No, I was right there. I mean, I was controlled situation. It's not a big deal." And plus, now I met this dude, and he's a really good guy, and we're getting good intel off it. But the point of the story is about here in America. You walk around America, and everybody's fighting. Everybody's talking about phobias. Everybody's calling everybody Nazis. It's all this huge fight. You walk around the street, and you're lucky if you don't get beat up if you're late at night, and you're white or black or Asian or this or that. If you're different, if you're an other, and Courtney brought this up, if you get the term othered put onto you, you're going to get it. Because that label is that dangerous label. And that's America right now. And so every time I talk, when I give these speeches out in front of these huge groups of people, and I do that, you know, like 5 to 10 big speeches a year, which is pretty good for me because I'm just living off my disability and stuff, you know? So if I can give a speech and I can make a little money off it, it's a pretty good deal. And I give leadership stuff and I do motivation stuff. But this is one of the stuff I talk about, is the fact that in America, we're all walking around and we never give anybody a chance. I said, I'm walking in there as an alien and a caveman on the ground with nothing. I gave him 3 seconds. I said, we don't do that for each other. Automatically, if you saw me as a transgender person and you would just want to fight me or you want to do something. And I had team guys start trying to pick fights with me and doing a lot of stuff. And it was just like, I didn't do anything. Well, I actually did do something with all that, and I feel bad about that. But we do that for everybody, for black and white, for Asian, for Latino, for all of it. We're all fighting. We never gave each other even 3 seconds to have a conversation or just look at you and say, hey, you're a human being. You know, I'm not going to walk up to you like this and just start punching you in the face. Yeah. How about you give me 3 seconds? And so I ask everybody out there, I say, you'll never, on anywhere around the world, mostly, very rarely will you ever see, you know, somebody as far apart as that alien and that caveman on that rooftop. I gave him 3 seconds. So why can't you do the same? You know, just give everybody you meet 3 seconds. How about you start with a smile instead of a grimace? There's this one rapper that said his whole life changed when all he did was just change his eyebrows. I can't remember who it was, but he was always like that, and always like trying to be that tough guy, just always like, and you do it, you purposely squint like that, and I can look really mean, and I can go up to you, and I can mad dog you. And most of those rappers are all doing that mad dog stuff. He's all he did was lift his eyebrows. And he did that. And everybody changed. Everybody started talking to him differently. And he started treating everybody differently. And his whole life changed. And I ask everybody out there, 3 seconds. You know, I was able to do it in the most critical, like whack, life and death situations.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a big thing to ask. Is that we all start smiling a little bit, just like that guy did, and changed his life, just lifted his eyebrows a little bit and started being, how about a smile? How about open your hands up out of them fists and talking to each other? Now, how you see transgender people right now is the way I hope a lot of other people start seeing them. There's a lot of folks out there that are hurting. And the thing is every time you are scowl or you talk to a transgender person because they're looking just whack or whatever's going on, and you make fun of them or do anything like that, what you're doing is you're pushing, you're punching them. And then as soon as they get punched, they're going to sit there and they're going to talk to their trans community and the whole community, and they get hugely love bombed. And all it does is just make the gap wider. So every time you're all out there in public, you aren't smiling with those transgender people, just give them a break. You know, they don't need to be beat up. They're beating themselves up enough. You don't need to beat them up. They're getting beat up by everybody else. So if you can do it, if you're a human, and you have just the slightest bit of compassion, how about you start being a little nicer? How about you give that person a break and start trying to close that gap up a little bit? How about if you're black or white, you give it a break and start closing that gap up a little bit? If you're Latino or Asian or whatever, how about you give it all a break? We're not all racist. Most of us aren't. Most of us are poor, and most of us are rich, and that's the division. It's had nothing about race and nothing about religion or nothing about gender, nothing about any of that. The only enemies right now is rich and poor. You know, and always been that way. We're the slaves to them, and it's all we are. And so if we start looking at each other and start saying, hey, we're the same. Hey, dude, you're good. You're a good dude. I've talked to you now for 3 seconds. All right? And we shake hands. And it's black and white. There's man and woman, or gay and straight, or trans and not trans. And whatever. When you start closing those gaps up, because we don't shoot, and we give them a few seconds, we might start finding out that America's a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
But right now it's a cesspool. Right now it's all fights. And CNN's doing it, and Fox is doing it. And all we're doing is fighting. And we got to stop that. You got to start offering your hand out. When you see that transgender person in that grocery store, just leave them alone. You don't need to make fun of them. They already get enough of that. They get enough of that in a mirror. So please, all I say, if you listen to this whole thing and you make it here to the end, just, would you chill out a little bit? Would you start being a little friendlier to people? I don't hate anybody. I want everybody to do well, you know? And I want everybody to find happiness. I want everybody to find love. I did. I found love and happiness. And I give everybody at least 3 seconds, all the time, no matter what. No matter how they're coming at me, until they're like right there and I start feeling some danger, I'm still trying to give them some time, you know? And I plead with our country right now. We're at the precipice right now of a civil war. And you know it, and I know it, and a lot of people know it. We're at the precipice right now. But we don't have to fall over. We don't have to go there. We don't have to have another civil war. But we're gonna, if we keep going in this direction. And I beg of you, give everybody 3 seconds. That's all I ask.
You're a good fucking human being, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I'm trying, man, I'm trying. It's not easy. I'm trying. Thank you.
Proud to know you. It's an honor.
That right there is one of the most powerful shows that you will listen to regarding to today's society and some of the uphill battles that we face. And you know, a lot of the times I just keep my head down because I don't know what else to think, what else to say, because opinions just get you in so much trouble. And nobody wants to feel like that, walking on eggshells. Shit, I went through that when I was married, you know. Why do I want to do that with the public? Like I said, I have absolutely zero hate in my heart for anyone. I'm lying on that. I do have hate in my heart for a couple of individuals, for how many times, for as much love that I've expressed for them. And this is mostly former best friend and family member. And how I was always there for them whenever they needed me. How I gave them thousands and thousands of dollars. And then when they said, oh, this is just a loan, I promise I'll pay you back. When I asked for a portion of it back, oh, why? So you could just take out that whore? A new girlfriend I had. She wasn't a whore and never met her. This person never met her. So I'd stop and be like, for one, you never met her. And two, you were begging me, almost on the verge of tears, because you were broke and you couldn't feed yourself. So I sent you these, you know, a few $1,000s because I asked you to pay a little bit back from when you said you were going to pay the full amount. You're going to talk shit like this. They never gave me back all the money. Same for another person who, before my ex just fucked up my credit to high hell, I was asked if I could, finance an anniversary gift at a jewelry shop where I got my ex-wife's ring. Her ring was $25,000. So, of course, the lady who worked there just loved me to death, loved us to death. She's awesome. So I went in there, and given that my credit was, good and everything before she fucked it up, I said, yeah, I wanted to get something, and I already went in with the idea of knowing what I was going to get. And she's like, they just started a new thing when you haven't leased in a while, or when you haven't financed something in a while, there's a new activation fee of $350. So I was like, fuck, I don't want to let this person down because, I love them. They're extremely close to me, they're family. So I was like, all right. And so I told them, I said, hey, I've lent you about $25,000 in the past. And, this is just $350. Are you going to be, because they're very, very responsible. They added on to their property. And not once has there been a payment missed to the bank. Not once have they became irresponsible or any of the above. The moment I finance that, I get a letter in the mail from the jewelry store. And then also later on a handwritten note by my jeweler. And she said, yeah, they didn't make the first 3 months of payments. My face just fucking dropped. I'm like, this is one of the most reliable people I've ever met in my entire life. And for them to have purposely done that to me. And so I went, like, we got in a full blown out, like, argument. And I was talking over him the whole time. I wasn't going to allow him to make a fucking point whatsoever. And I brought up the fact that I doubt you've ever been late on adding on to your property. I doubt that you've ever been late on your car payment, on anything. I'm like, but yet you purposely have me finance you some fucking jewelry for an anniversary gift. And you purposely don't pay on it, and you don't tell me to where I could have at least made the payments. And you have no desire to fucking pay me back or anything. And their exact words to me were, well, I don't really care. I was never more stunned in my life from hearing that. And I said, you're not a fucking man. I always thought, looking up to a person like you, that, you have your shit together. You're a good, what I thought was a good person, but for you to say that, you are no fucking man. And that kind of comes right back around to this whole topic that we're walking on eggshells around people, afraid to say this, afraid to say that. I don't ever remember there being a time. I mean, it seems like ever since after COVID, like, everything has changed. It's so hard to explain, but it's just, everything's so fucking different. And it sucks, it's sad, and I don't like the way it feels, just that nobody could express their opinions anymore. I mean, it's just it's really fucked up. So I'm glad that somebody like Chris Beck here, who's a straight up Navy SEAL, badass mother, could do some crazy shit to anybody who tries to mess with him. And he's talking about how it's not ever really transitioning. It's just making yourself look like it to feel better. And this is coming from a person who's actually done it. Like, unless you've walked in their shoes, you really don't know what it's like. It's like saying, you don't know what it's like to be, black or Hispanic or Oriental or, Native American unless you were in their skin for a day, you know, in your normal environment, you might see some differences depending on how tolerable the people you hang around with are. Other times, you know, you might experience a lot of hatred or you might not experience anything at all. But the whole point of it is, you know, his frustration of how sexualized it is becoming for children to, you know, see this. You know, another thing is just giving these, you know, CPs more access to these children by claiming that they're, you know, transsexual. And just the simple fact that you cannot change yourself into something you weren't born. You may feel that way, but you're not. Like, I could feel deep down inside when people would make fun of me, like, you play the guitar, dude. You sound like one of the whitest guys I've ever met. You know, you dress like a white dude, all this stuff. I don't wear sandals. I know that's just a stereotype, but they're like, you're like a white dude, man. And I'm like, but I'm not. I said, that's what I was raised around. That's what I'm used to, but it doesn't make me white. It doesn't make me, you know, it doesn't make me look different in any other way who ever might, you know, come across me or see me. And like his wife or his fiance was saying, you know, no matter what you try to do, I could tell that you're a man. No matter how much you try to cover it up. And that is the honest word of God truth. And I don't mean to be offending anyone, but this was one powerful episode. And, you know, I'm sorry for keeping my big ass mug in there for a lot of the time, but yeah, hope you guys listen to it. It's going to be a long episode, so I appreciate your guys' patience on this. This was probably the last one for a little bit. I had made a really cool video tonight, and it got copy striked, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to get it back up. But anyways, I hope you guys have a good day today. Hope it goes fast. Guys, be safe out there, all right? I'm out.